Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolute origins of an empire. We're going to take an incredible journey back in time to explore one of the most powerful, influential, and honestly, just fascinating civilizations in all of human history. Yeah, we're talking about ancient Egypt. We're looking at a civilization that reigned supreme for over 3,000 years. Situated over in Northeast Africa, this empire didn't just, happen to exist near the Nile River. Its entire identity was literally shaped by it. But before they became the legendary superpower we know today, there was this deep division, a completely wild geographical mystery, and a monumental unification that actually changed history forever. So get ready, because we are going to decode exactly how this ancient juggernaut was born.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this is honestly one of the most bizarre geographical mysteries you'll ever come across. It leaves us with this burning question: why on earth is Upper Egypt located in the southern part of the map, while Lower Egypt is way up in the north? It's a total geographic paradox. It completely defies our modern compass, and it trips up almost everyone who starts studying Egyptian history. I mean, it feels totally backwards, right? But hold that thought for a second. Before we actually solve this upside-down map mystery, we kind of need to understand the sheer massive scale of the civilization we're dealing with.
Over their staggering 3,000-year history, the ancient Egyptians didn't just survive, they achieved absolute greatness. Think about it. They engineered these huge, breathtaking pyramids that are still standing today as some of the most beautiful monuments in the entire world. They crafted exquisite statues, incredibly detailed artworks. But they weren't just artists, they were serious scientific innovators. During their long reign, they developed highly advanced systems of agriculture to feed massive populations, groundbreaking architecture to actually construct those monuments, and sophisticated astronomy to map the stars. Understanding the roots of this superpower really matters, because they laid the groundwork for so much of human advancement.
So you might be wondering, how do we actually know so much about their beautiful artworks, their agriculture, and their history? Well, it's all through their writing. To document this magnificent world, they developed the highly complex writing system of hieroglyphics. If you were to walk inside those grand pyramids today, the walls are just covered in these intricate, detailed symbols. This hieroglyphic writing system allowed them to meticulously record their entire world. It's a prime example of just how incredibly advanced their culture was, even way back then. And it's through these very recordings that we've been able to piece together the political structure of the era, and, thankfully, finally solve our map mystery.
All right, here's the big reveal. The answer to our paradox, why the map seems completely upside down, comes down to one single unstoppable force of nature: the flow of the Nile River. You see, we tend to look at maps through a modern lens, based on compass directions like north and south. But the ancient Egyptians, they oriented their entire worldview, their geography, and their naming conventions around the absolute lifeblood of their civilization, the river itself. Let's break down exactly how this worked in practice. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the naming actually makes perfect sense. Unlike most major rivers, the Nile flows from south to north. Because the water originates down in the south, that area is the upstream portion of the river. Therefore, the southern region was naturally named Upper Egypt, simply because it was literally higher up on the river's stream. Consequently, as the water flowed down towards the north, that downstream section became known as Lower Egypt. For them, geography dictated absolutely everything.
Now that we've got our bearings, we need to travel back to the pre-dynastic era. This is the time before Egypt was one massive unified empire. Before the first dynasty even existed, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt weren't just geographic regions, they were two completely separate kingdoms. We're talking about two distinct worlds that merely happened to share the same river. They had their own completely separate rulers, kings and queens who governed totally independently. They had their own unique symbols, their own distinct cultures, and deeply rooted separate traditions. So yes, they were neighbors, but they were incredibly deeply divided.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the striking one-to-one visual duality between these two kingdoms. Just look at the differences. In Upper Egypt, located in the south, the rulers wore this very distinctive white crown. Meanwhile, up in Lower Egypt, located in the north, the kings wore a bright red crown. But the division went way, way deeper than just the color of their hats. It actually penetrated right into their ancient mythological beliefs. The people of Upper Egypt worshipped and looked for protection from the goddess Nekhbet. But in Lower Egypt, they prayed to a completely different protector goddess, Wadjet. The duality was absolute. Different geography, different crowns, different gods.
There's this ancient phrase, Nekhbet for the south, Wadjet for the north, and it perfectly encapsulates how deeply divided these kingdoms were. Just imagine living in a time where the people living just down the river from you looked to a completely different divine protector for their safety. The southern kingdom held firmly to their faith in Nekhbet, believing she alone guarded their lands and their white-crowned king. At the same time, the Northern Kingdom believed equally fervently in Wadjet to protect their red-crowned rulers. These weren't just political boundaries, guys, they were deep, fundamental mythological divides.
Let's move forward and see how this builds into the climax of our story today. For generations, prior to 3100 BC, this strict division was just the normal way of life. Two divided kingdoms keeping to their own gods and their own crowns. But then, right around the 3100 BC mark, everything changes. We see the monumental arrival of a ruler named King Narmer. Narmer looks at this deeply entrenched division and decides to do the unthinkable. He initiates the Great Unification.
Now, King Narmer didn't just conquer, he understood the immense power of symbolism. To prove that Upper and Lower Egypt were now truly one, Narmer did something incredibly bold. He created the double crown. He literally took the white crown of the Southern Kingdom and physically merged it together with the red crown of the Northern Kingdom. By wearing this double crown, he wasn't just claiming political dominance. No, he was showing the literal merging of two entirely different, deeply religious worlds into one singular, unstoppable entity.
So the crucial point here is that King Narmer's incredible act of unification officially birthed the legendary First Dynasty of the Egyptian Empire. Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt were no longer divided neighbors praying to different gods. Through Narmer's sheer leadership and the symbolic power of that double crown, they were forcefully and brilliantly forged into a single, unified superpower. The foundation was finally laid for those 3,000 years of monumental greatness, massive pyramids, and advanced civilization that we still marvel at today. But, this unification is really just the beginning. It leaves us with one massive, looming question. With two distinct, culturally rich and powerful worlds, each with their own proud traditions and gods, now forcefully combined into a single empire under one double crown, what explosive events will unfold in the First Dynasty? I mean, how do you actually govern two merged worlds that were divided for so long? We've solved the map paradox and witnessed the birth of an empire, but the real drama of the ancient Egyptian kings is only just starting. Keep that question in your mind as you continue to explore the incredible history of this civilization.